Welcome back. Time is 7:43. The makers of the large cargo ship that crashed into a Maryland bridge last year, killing 6, has been named in a new lawsuit. Grace Ocean Private, the owners of the Dolly, filed a lawsuit against Hyundai Heavy Industries in U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania.
The Dolly was leaving Baltimore bound for Sri Lanka back on March 26 last year when its steering failed due to the power loss. It crashed into one of the bridge's supporting columns, destroying the 1.6-mile span and killing 6 members of a roadwork crew. Baltimore's port was closed then for months, and increased traffic congestion remains a problem across that region.
Grace Ocean Private contends the switchboard was defectively designed in a manner that wiring connections were not secured. The defect, the company alleges, caused the switchboard and the vessel to be unreasonably dangerous when it left HHI's control.
All right, so here we are bringing in our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes, to kind of break this down. Khalif, good morning.
Good morning.
So we've got the owners of the ship that are pointing fingers at the manufacturers, Hyundai. When you start pointing fingers externally so that all the spotlight's not on one person for liability, what does that do to the case? You also have victims that are wanting money. Does that just open up the pot more for more money?
It's the largest Spider-Man meme ever, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a couple of things. First, as you mentioned in the intro, 6 people died that day. And so this was a catastrophic event. You're talking about loss of life. So you'll have those families that have filed and will continue to file claims. But then you have the recovery efforts, right? You're talking about a place where a number of ships are trying to go through there that are taking cargo all throughout the country. That's one of the largest entry points in our country. So the cleanup effort, the immediate cleanup effort, because the cleanup effort's still going on right now. But in the infancy of this, to try to clean up this, the government requested and sued for $100 million. They wanted $100 million just for that first cleanup effort. The owners and the managers agreed to do $102 million with their cleanup effort. And so that portion has already taken place. But in the process, what I'm trying to do is if I've had to pay something back to the Spider-Man pointing, I want to be subrogated. I want, if I've had to, insurance or someone else has had to cover something, but I don't believe that it was my fault, but you sued me in this separate claim, so now I'm going to sue this other person that I truly believe that was at fault. Sometimes the original claim could be a countersuit, or it could be a separate suit against another entity. And that's what we have here. They were sued by the federal government. Now what they're saying is, hey, thank you, federal government. We'll pay that fine, but we'll pay that amount that you're asking for. But to be able to recoup some of this money, to subrogate the cost that I've had to pay, to offset that, I'm going to be suing who we think is truly at fault. And in this man, it's the manufacturer and the maker of the ship.
Well, Khalif, interesting, in that lawsuit, they said that the company recklessly cut corners and ignored known electrical problems on the vessel, failed to address excessive vibrations that were causing these problems. If they knew the vessel was faulty, where does the fault lie? Because if I should have taken it back to the company. Why are you sailing a ship that you know is faulty?
So that's the language that the federal government used in their lawsuit, and that's what they alleged when they brought that complaint to the government. That's alleging that the company, that the owners of the ship, not the manufacturers, that they knew these things should have come. And I think that's a pretty cut and dry. You talk about duty, breach, causation, and damages. This is that causation portion. Was it reasonably foreseeable that something could have occurred? Well, let's look at the facts. If you see these extra vibrations, if you're noticing things that are happening, if you're cutting, different parts of the machine off so it can operate, you knew or should have known that this could have occurred. So you knew that. That's why they settled this claim. That's why they gave them $102 million, because the likelihood of them being, found liable at a trial would have been high. But now going to these other folks, they're saying, no, that's not the but-for. That's not the causation. The causation is the product's liability. That product was defective from the beginning. You guys sent us a defective product, and even if we would have done everything that we should have done and not cut the corners, guess what? The product still would have failed. That's why they bring this separate claim against the designer and the maker of the switchboard.
The ship owner is trying to cap liability using a maritime law from the 1800s. Do courts look at this and go, yeah, that still works from 100 plus years ago, or we need to update that to reflect more current times?
Time is relative in the eyes of the court. I mean, if it's still applicable in terms of the case law and the merits, if you're talking about ships that were from 18-something or from 2020, it doesn't matter in terms of what the designs of the ships. Does it fit into that fact pattern? is it applicable, or is something new happening, or other rulings happen that will give it some type of precedent or guidance around that? Sometimes old law is still great on the books. It still fits the time, still fits the crime, and if it fits, you must acquit, like they said in the OJ case.
Khalif, one of the sad things is the victims we mentioned there, they're still waiting to get money. They won't even have their next court action until, I believe, June of next year, when they're setting a cap on how much they can even be paid out. Does it take that long? We talk about all this money changing hands, the victims, the ones who really need it. Is that just kind of a long process? They just have to wait?
It is. It's a long process, but you got to recognize this. With this other lawsuit, it also opens the door for them as the victims to say, now I have another party to sue. I can sue. I mean, if I'm representing the families, I'm suing the bridge folks. I'm suing the state. I'm suing the boat owner, the manufacturer, the manager. I'm suing who developed the boat, who did the switchboard. And then I'm allowing those folks to work them way off of this type of case, because it seems like everyone will have some part and accountability to what happened that tragic day.
All right, still a tough story even over a year later. All right, Khalif, thank you. Appreciate that.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.